Avengers. You think yourselves heroes, but it is I who am truly the hero. I shall bring balance to the galaxy, save all life from extinction brought on by overpopulation. And now, with this infinity gauntlet, I shall... Thanos, wait! What? Give me a moment to sell you a better solution. It's called free market capitalism. This video was made possible by my patrons. Just Another ANCAP, Joshua Bartlett, Scorch88, and all other patrons at the additional tiers. Thank you so much to all of you. Hello everyone, this is My Two Cents. By now, I hope you've all had an opportunity to watch Avengers Infinity War, but if not, you may want to hold off watching this video because there will be some mild spoilers. So, let me first say that I really loved the movie. It was action-packed, it had an engaging plot, and as I said in my review about Black Panther, that's really all you can hope for from a Marvel movie these days. And Marvel certainly did not disappoint with this one. However, I'd like to specifically talk about the villain Thanos and his motivations throughout the movie. To do a quick recap, ever since 2012's Avengers, we've known that Thanos has been a dangerous threat looming in the shadows, but we haven't really found out much about him specifically. Guardians of the Galaxy gave us a little bit of insight with regards to Gamora and Nebula's background involving Thanos as their adopted father, but still, we didn't know what drove him to become the villainous threat that he is. Well, in Infinity War, we finally learned something about Thanos' history. Thanos is a native of a planet called Titan, which went through some sort of extinction-level event in its past. Thanos reveals that the planet was overpopulated and running out of resources, but that he had a plan to rectify the situation. By randomly killing half of the planet's population, the remainder would be able to survive in the long term. However, Thanos' fellow Titan dwellers had rejected his plan, and as a result, they met their end. Now, Thanos has vowed to never let this happen again. He travels the galaxy, killing half the population of various planets that he believes to be facing the same threat that his homeworld did, and from his own vantage point, saving them in the process. He even explains to Gamora at one point during the film that despite him having killed half the population of her homeworld when he forcefully adopted her, the residents of her world are now very well off and no longer suffering from poverty, all because he had the guts to prune the population. Thanos' goals actually mirror a point of view that was originally made famous by a British cleric and scholar named Thomas Malthus. In 1798, Malthus penned an essay on the principle of population. His basic contention was that humans have the capability to reproduce exponentially. To replace a given population, every woman would have to have 2 children in order to replace her and her husband. But if every woman had 4 children, the population could double, and so on and so forth. On the other hand, he observed that food production only seemed to increase arithmetically, as he called it, or only as much as there was available fertile land and laborers to farm it. In 1798, the world's population consisted of roughly 800 million people, and the population had been growing. After doing his calculations, Malthus predicted that if the population kept growing at the rate it was, the world would run out of food by the year 1890, putting the very survival of the human race in jeopardy. The solution? Kill off the poor and others in society that Malthus saw as undesirable. To quote Malthus, "All the children born beyond what would be required to keep up the population to this level must necessarily perish, unless room be made for them by the deaths of grown persons. To act consistently, therefore, we should facilitate instead of foolishly and vainly endeavoring to impede the operations of nature in producing this mortality." Well, it's been 128 years since 1890, and the Earth's population is nearly 10 times what it was in Malthus's day. Yet, the human race is nowhere close to extinction. Why might this be? To find the answer, we need to look at how we as the human race went from a society of hunter-gatherers to the technologically advanced society we have now, where 100% of the food is produced by just over 2% of the population. Let's imagine a society of people at the dawn of humanity, living in a region where they survive primarily by growing and picking berries. While nutritious and capable of sustaining life, these berries are difficult to pick by hand, and so every person in the society has to work at least 14 hours a day just to guarantee that they have enough berries to be satisfied. Seems like a pretty raw deal, huh? But then you do have to do what you gotta do to survive. However, one day one of the members of society stands up and says, "Hey everyone, I've got an idea. I think that by using sticks and carefully woven grasses, I can build a berry picking tool and gathering net that will make it a lot easier to gather berries. The only thing is, I need to spend some time building it and testing it until it works. During that time, I won't actually be able to pick the berries I need to eat, so let me make a proposal. The rest of you keep picking berries and each of you give me just a few a day so that I can eat. In return, I'll spend my time figuring this out, and when I'm done, I'll give picking tools and gathering nets to everyone who contributed berries to me." The people agree and he goes forward with his plan. This is, by definition, an investment. The people who are giving up some of their berries are foregoing consumption, even though there is no immediate reward. However, their hope is that the inventor will be successful, and they'll be the better for it in the long run. Well, the inventor is successful, and once his new device spreads through the society, they discover that one person can now gather 10 times the amount of berries in one day as they could before. Obviously, this means that not every person in society will have to pick berries anymore, which frees up the time of a significant amount of people to now look for other ways to improve their situation. Perhaps some of them will experiment with building better shelter, designing warmer clothes, or figuring out how to better treat the sick. This may be a primitive and oversimplified example, but this is describing exactly what happens in a free market. Let's imagine for a minute that Malthus's predictions were correct. The population was growing, but the food production was staying the same. Well, under free market conditions, by the law of supply and demand, as the larger population sought to obtain food from a supply that was staying constant, the prices of food would rise to compensate for the increased demand. For a short time, this may look like a crisis was on the horizon. However, given the law of supply and demand, producers would now have an incentive to look for new ways to produce more food at less cost, just like the inventor in our scenario. Further, those that possess capital would be willing to invest in such efforts, knowing that success would mean greater returns for them given the increased price of food. Today, we can see the results of this process in the First World. In 1900, about 38% of the labor force in the United States was farmers, but today it's only between 1 and 2%. Yet, people are still being fed and now have significantly more free time that they can spend on the computer, at the movies, or doing all kinds of other activities that no one could have dreamed of in 1900. The fact of the matter is that we're now producing more food on less land, all because of technological advancements making labor more efficient and improving the quality of production, thereby freeing up time to be used for new endeavors. In fact, if we look at the countries today where there is widespread poverty and starvation, what do they all tend to have in common? You guessed it, these countries tend to have totalitarian governments that control the means of production. Just look at Venezuela. They have a year-round growing season and vast oil reserves. By all accounts, they should be one of the wealthiest countries in the world, yet the people are eating rats just to survive. History shows that socialism and famine go hand in hand. In fact, some of the most famous famines in history were deliberately manufactured by the governments of socialist countries in an effort to control the population. One has to wonder if Thanos' home planet had a socialist government. Bottom line, overpopulation is not a problem. Malthus's predictions failed. Then, in 1968, a professor by the name of Paul Ehrlich made a similar prediction, claiming that humanity would starve to death by the end of the 1970s. When it didn't happen, some people in 2008, during the financial crisis, again turned to Malthus's predictions. And now it's 2018. Mysteriously, the population has kept growing this entire time, yet this extinction-level event never seems to arrive. Under the scientific method, if the predictions you make continuously fail, it's usually a sign that there's something wrong with your theory. If you attempt to resolve this non-existent problem by killing off portions of the population, you in fact rid yourself of a vital resource. People with the potential to use their ingenuity and labor to lower production costs and thereby make life better for everyone. So, Thanos. What do you say we nix the whole kill the half the universe plan and instead use that gauntlet to educate the galaxy about free market capitalism and how it can solve the problem? Gee, you've enlightened me. Let's do it. And well, that's my 2 cents. So take it for what it's worth. Thanks everyone for watching. If you liked this video, please hit like and subscribe. You can also hit the bell to ensure you're notified every time I upload a new video. This video was made possible by my patrons. If anyone else would like to donate and help ensure that I have the time and resources to keep putting out content, for just $1 a month on Patreon or Maker Support, you'll have your name listed in the end credits of every video and the link to one of your social media platforms listed in the description. You can also support the channel by purchasing my 2 cents merchandise on Teespring. You can also follow me on Twitter, Minds.com, BitChute, WordPress, Gab, and iTunes. Uploads are every Thursday and Saturday, so stay tuned for more videos.